The streets of Ajagunle, Lagos, smelled like sweat, dust, and survival. Children played barefoot beside overflowing gutters, women shouted over the price of tomatoes, and the afternoon sun showed no mercy. Zubaida balanced a tray of puff-puff on her head as she walked down the alley, dodging motorbikes and insults. At just 22, she had already lived 10 lifetimes worth of struggle. Her mother was bedridden, her younger brother skipped school more than he attended, and their one-room home had no door, just a torn curtain, but Zubaida's heart, still full of fire. Every day after hawking, she cleaned the floors at Elite Luxe Boutique in Victoria Island. There she saw a different Lagos, one of polished tiles, imported perfume, and girls who didn't know what it meant to go to bed hungry. That's where she found the invitation. It had fallen behind a mirror, a golden envelope heavy like real money. The name on it was Adesua Oba. Zubaida stared at it for minutes. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The Horizon Gala, an exclusive night hosted by CEO Alhaji Malik Bako. Dress code, elite. Entry by invitation only. She shouldn't have taken it, but life doesn't ask for permission when you're poor. That night, while her mother slept and her brother studied under candlelight, Zubaida stood in front of the boutique's mirror, wearing a dress she wasn't allowed to touch, let alone borrow. A faded gold gown, slightly torn at the hem, but she pinned it with a safety clip. She wrapped a scarf around her braids, wiped her old shoes clean, and took a bus to the other side of life. The gala was at the Monarch Hotel, where rich people didn't just walk, they floated. Zubaida clutched the invitation tightly, praying. The security man wouldn't ask too many questions. He looked her up and down, frowned, but let her in. Inside, everything glittered. The lights, the glasses, the people. Zubaida stood awkwardly near a pillar, afraid to touch anything, watching everyone smile through their teeth. She tried not to stare when she saw him. Alhaji Malik Bako. The man behind Bako Holdings. Real. Estate, oil, telecom, fashion. If it made money, he owned it. Her dark-skinned, broad-shouldered Yoruba man in a custom agbada with a Rolex that could pay for her entire street's rent. He didn't just walk. He commanded. Zubaida had seen him on billboards, newspapers, and TV, but in person, he was overwhelming. And somehow he noticed her. Their eyes met across the room. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She looked away, pretended to sip the champagne she didn't like. But 10 minutes later, he was standing in front of her. "You're not from this world," he said softly. His voice was like silk dipped in steel. Excuse me?" she stammered. He smiled faintly. "You don't belong here. But you're trying very hard to act like you do." Zubaida didn't answer. She couldn't lie well. "Relax," he said, stepping closer. "That's not an insult. It's refreshing." People were watching, whispers, jealous eyes. A poor girl with the richest man in the building? "It wasn't supposed to happen. I should leave," Zubaida muttered. "You should stay," Malik said firmly. "Dance with me." It was madness, but she followed him onto the floor. That night felt like a movie. He made her laugh, listened to her speak, asked questions no rich man ever cared to ask. For a few hours, Zubaida forgot who she was. Later, when he offered to drop her home, she hesitated. But he insisted. "I have a guest suite in the penthouse. You look tired. Just rest, that's all." She knew what it sounded like. But her feet were blistered. Her back ached. And he hadn't touched her once without permission, so she said yes. She didn't sleep with him, but she slept in the warmest bed of her life, with soft sheets and silence for once. In the morning, she woke up alone. There was no goodbye, just an envelope on the table. Inside it was a business card. Alhaji Malik Bako, personal line. Use this only once. Underneath it, $500 in crisp Naira notes. Zubaida stared at the money like it was blood money. Her eyes burned. What had she become? A project? A charity? Case? Or something worse? She folded the note quietly, not knowing that this single night, this one strange encounter, would rewrite her entire fate. Zubaida didn't speak on the ride back to Ajagunle. She took a Kiki Napep alone from the bus stop, clutching the envelope tight inside her handbag, like it was poison and treasure at once. The driver didn't ask questions. People in her part of town knew when not to speak. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried, not yet. The kind of shame she felt wasn't loud, and it was quiet, heavy, the kind that stayed under your skin like old burns. Her house was still the same. The zinc roof leaking on one side, her mother's cough echoing from inside. Her brother asleep on the bare mattress with books scattered beside him. She sat down on the floor and finally allowed the tears to come. Not because of what had happened, but because of what didn't. She wasn't used to being seen, and Malik Bako had seen her. Not like the men on her street who whistled when she walked past. Not like the market women who pitied her or warned their sons to stay away. He looked at her like she mattered, but that made it worse, because she knew she didn't belong in his world. She hid the envelope under her mattress, told no one, not even her best friend, Ramat. Days passed. She returned to the boutique, hoping to forget. But the memory of that night wouldn't leave her. And neither would the guilt. Then one afternoon her manager called her over. "There's someone asking for you." Zubaida's stomach dropped. She stepped out to the waiting area and froze. It was him, Malik, in a dark kaftan and sunglasses, standing, casually like he didn't own half the city. Her boss stood nearby, clearly intimidated. "She's one of our best girls, sir," he said nervously. Malik didn't look at the man. His eyes were on her, calm, calculating. "Take your break, Zubaida," he said. "Come." Outside, he opened the door to a sleek black SUV. She didn't move. "Why are you here?" "Because you didn't call. I told you I didn't belong in that place." He smiled slightly. "Maybe you belong with me instead." "Don't play games," she snapped, surprising even herself. "I'm not one of your rich friends who dress up for magazines. I live in a room that floods when it rains. I buy tomatoes. In spoons, not baskets. You don't know anything about me." Malik nodded, unfazed. "Good, then tell me." Zubaida stared at him. He was serious. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would a man like you waste time on someone like me?" He looked her dead in the eye. "Because I'm tired of people who only speak money. You? You speak pain." It shook her. For a few moments, she considered turning away, walking back to her mop, her racks, her quiet shame. But something inside her shifted. She got in the car. That day, he didn't take her to any hotel or office. He drove her to Makoko, a floating slum on water where the city's poorest lived. They got out and walked. Malik nodded at a small building under construction. "I fund this clinic, quietly. No media. No ribbon cutting. Just medicine for those who need it." Zubaida stared at the half-finished building. Children waved at Malik. One even ran up and hugged his leg. "They know you?" she asked. "I grew up here," he said simply. "Before the first suit, before the first million." Her lips parted slightly. She had assumed he was born with everything. "You're not who I thought you were," he turned to her. "Neither are you." By the time they drove back, the silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full, weighted. At her street corner, he handed her an envelope. She pushed it back toward him. "No. Just read what's inside." Later that night she did. It wasn't money. It was a letter. "If you want more than survival, I can give you a life. Not as a mistress, not as a secret, but as something better. Dinner, Friday night, 7 p.m. Decide if you want to open the door." Zubaida stared at the paper for hours, and this time, when she cried, it was because she didn't know whether to run away or finally say yes. Friday came like a thief, fast, unforgiving. Zubaida stood in front of the mirror, staring at a reflection that didn't feel like hers. Ramat had helped her braid her hair the night before, tight and neat, with small gold cuffs clipped into each line. She wore a simple black dress Malik had sent, not flashy, just elegant, like something a woman would wear when she's trying to feel like she belongs. But her hands still shook. She wasn't scared of Malik. She was scared of what it meant to say yes. "You sure you're ready for this?" Ramat asked, sitting cross-legged on the mattress. Zubaida didn't answer. She just picked up the small purse and stepped out into the Ajagunle night. Malik's driver was already waiting at the junction. The drive to his private residence in Ikoyi felt longer than usual, not because of traffic, but because her heart beat like a drum in her throat. She watched the world change through the window, from broken roads and shouting hawkers to polished gates and streetlights that actually worked. The difference between their worlds was more than just money. It was language, breathing space, power. The car stopped outside a tall white building with glass balconies and a fountain that seemed to serve no purpose except to whisper, "You don't belong here." The door opened before she could knock. He was standing there, barefoot, in grey slacks and a white shirt. Nothing like the public version of him. This was not CEO Malik. This was just Malik. He didn't say anything. Just smiled and stepped aside to let her in. The apartment was quiet, soft jazz playing low from a speaker. There was no staff, no guests, just the two of them. Dinner was already set. Roasted tilapia, jollof rice, plantains sliced thin like they do in Ghana, and cold sobo in glass cups. Zubaida didn't speak until halfway through the meal. "Why me?" she asked again softly. "Why not someone cleaner, someone simpler?" Malik leaned back, wiping his mouth. "Because you're not easy. You make me feel something I forgot I had. Curiosity. Hunger, but not the usual kind." She looked down. "I'm not polished. I don't know the rules of this life. Then we'll make new ones," he said. Silence stretched between them, and then he added, "But I won't lie to you. I have a past. Women, noise, power. I've broken hearts, bought silence, lost respect. I'm not the man you should want." Zubaida met his eyes. "Then why are you trying to be someone else, Guy, with me?" He looked almost tired. "Because for once I don't want to be in control." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not like she was weak, but like she was real. After dinner, he didn't touch her. Not once. He walked her to the balcony, handed her a cup of tea, and just sat. They spoke for hours. About mothers, about failure, about the day he lost his father at 16 and was forced to become a man before he was ready. About how she sold Puff Puff at 13 and saw men stare at her too long. About pain and silence. And longing. It was the most human night of her life. At midnight she stood to leave, but he stopped her gently. "You don't have to go." "I do," she said. "Why?" "Because if I stay, this becomes something else. And I don't want to be anyone's soft escape." Malik looked like he understood, but he didn't argue. He walked her to the car. Opened the door. Before she sat, he said quietly, "If you come back, Zubaida, don't come as someone I pity. Come as someone who knows what she wants." She nodded once, shut the door. On the ride home, she didn't cry, didn't shake. She just stared at the city lights, one hand resting on her heart, and whispered to herself, "I deserve to want something more." She didn't know it yet, but the moment she chose to leave that night, she took back the power no one ever gave her, and that power would cost Malik Bako more than he ever imagined. 2 weeks passed. Zubaida didn't call, didn't text. She woke up early every day, cleaned the boutique, went home, cooked, read at night, prayed before bed, like nothing had changed. But everything had. She was no longer the same girl who found an invitation in the dust. Now, every moment felt borrowed, like life had handed her a glimpse of something impossible, and then pulled it back before she could hold it tight. She hated that she thought about him, but she did, all the time. Then, one afternoon, her manager handed her an envelope without a word, no logo, no name, just heavy cream paper. Inside, "Come to the Lakeside Conference Room at Echo Tower, 7 p.m., alone. MB." She stood in the back room for 15 minutes before folding the note and sliding it into her bag. That evening she wore her own dress, a simple navy blue one she had sewn herself last year for Eid. Her shoes were worn, her lipstick was old, but she carried herself like a woman with nothing to lose. She walked into the hotel lobby and took the elevator to the 21st floor. The receptionist didn't stop her. Maybe they'd been told not to. The room was empty, except for him. Malik stood, near the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the water. The room smelled like cinnamon and clean linen. He didn't look surprised when she entered. You came, he said quietly. You asked, she replied. He turned to face her, something unreadable in his eyes. I have a proposition, he said, and I want you to hear me out fully before you say no. Zubaida raised a brow but said nothing. I want to fund your education, anything you want. Business, finance, fashion, law, abroad, if you like. Full sponsorship. No conditions attached, no expectations, just freedom. She blinked. What do you mean, no conditions? You don't do things without reason. He stepped closer, his voice low. Maybe I just want to help someone I believe in. Zubaida narrowed her eyes. And maybe you're trying to build the perfect woman out of someone you found in the gutter. The silence between them was thick. Then he said, There's more. She folded her arms. Of course there is. My board is pressuring me to soften my public image. Too many stories, too much arrogance. They want something human, someone human. A woman beside me, not a model, not a celebrity. Just someone unexpected, someone real. Zubaida's stomach twisted. You want me to play your girlfriend? I want you to be by my side, events, dinners, conferences for 6 months. Just 6. And then it ends. She took a step back, heart pounding. So I become, what? A contract woman? A brand makeover tool? Malik looked her straight in the eyes. No, you become my choice. He walked to the table and slid a document toward her. It's written. Clean, you can read it, tear it up, laugh in my face, but it's there. Tuition, allowance, housing, and full respect. No sexual terms, no traps. You call the shots. Zubaida stared at the paper like it was a grenade. This wasn't just a deal, this was a crossroads. What if I say no, she asked. I'll walk away, he said, but I won't forget you. She picked up the paper, and in that moment, something deep inside her cracked. Not because of the offer, but because no one had ever asked her to choose herself before. The poor girl who cleaned mirrors for women who'd never look her way now had the power to rewrite her name. Zubaida didn't say yes, not yet. But when she walked out of that room, with the contract in her bag, she knew, whatever she chose, nothing would be the same again. Zubaida signed the contract on a rainy Tuesday evening. No ceremony, no champagne, just her, a pen, and the quiet knowledge that she was stepping into a fire she couldn't fully see. Malik had nodded when she handed it back. I'll protect your name, he had said. She hadn't believed him. By Friday, her picture was on the blogs. Mystery girl spotted with billionaire Malik Bako at UN Business Forum. Who is she? Lagos billionaire seen with new flame. Not a socialite. From nowhere to everywhere. Zubaida bellowed. A Cinderella or a scam? Her phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages from unknown numbers, some asking for interviews, others insulting her directly. Home wrecker. Cheap girl from the slums trying to climb. This is how these local girls get lucky. On their backs. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She went to the boutique the next day like normal, but the way her co-workers looked at her was different. Ramat tried to defend her, but even she couldn't stop the whispers. By noon, her boss called her into the office. We appreciate your service, he said coldly, but you've brought a lot of attention here, and not the good kind. You're firing me? Zubaida asked. It's better for both sides. She walked out without a word, her apron folded neatly under her arm. It didn't hurt, not as much as it used to. Because part of her knew this was always going to happen, she called Malik that evening. I lost my job, she said simply. I'll take care of it. No, she snapped. Don't fix it. I just wanted you to know what your name costs. He was quiet for a moment. Then, he said, come with me tomorrow, there's an event. Big one. I'm not ready. You don't need to be ready, he said. You just need to be seen, on your own terms. The event was a charity fundraiser in Lekki. Big money, big press, bigger egos. Zubaida wore a soft emerald dress, minimal jewelry, braids tied into a low bun. Her skin glowing from the shea butter she always used, not styled by a fashion team, not made over, just her. When she walked in beside Malik, the room fell into a kind of hush, the kind that happens when people don't expect to see someone like you standing beside someone like him. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't need to. His body language said it all. She's with me. And that's not up for debate. One of the older women, clearly a society wife, gave her a forced smile. And you are? Zubaida met her eyes. Zubaida Bello. Oh, the woman said, as if expecting more. Where are you from, dear? Ajagunle. The woman blinked. Zubaida smiled sweetly. You've probably never been, but people live there too. The woman walked away without a word. Malik, watching from the side, looked amused. You handled that well. I've been handling people like her all my life, Zubaida replied. Later that night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Malik handed her a glass of water. She took it, but didn't drink. I know what this is, she said. What? This thing we're doing, it's temporary, a show. He didn't correct her, didn't lie, but, she continued, I won't be your background anymore. If I'm standing next to you, it's because I choose to, not because I owe you. He turned. To face her, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. Understood. She set the glass down, and then asked the question she had been holding back for weeks. Why me, Malik? Why not someone cleaner, safer? Why take the risk? He hesitated, then said softly, Because you remind me of who I used to be. Before, I started pretending I was better. Her breath caught in her throat, and in that moment something shifted again. Not love, not yet, but the start of something deeper. Respect. The world had seen her now, judged her, named her. But Zubaida wasn't a background anymore. She was the main character in a story no one saw coming. 3 months passed like pages turning in a book she didn't remember starting. Zubaida was no longer the invisible girl behind glass counters or pushing trays of puff-puff through traffic. Now she was seen, photographed at panels, whispered about in women's salons and followed by bloggers who knew nothing about her but claimed everything. People called her names: Malik's girl, Ajagunle's lucky star, the slum Cinderella. But no one asked what it felt like to carry a city's mockery on her back while trying to find her own reflection in the mirror again. Every day with Malik was a performance. He was kind, protective, sometimes even vulnerable. But she wasn't foolish. She knew he was used to controlling narratives. She was just his latest plot twist. One night, after a long dinner where she had been paraded before foreign investors, like a mascot of change, Zubaida finally broke. She stood in his penthouse living room, heels in hand, hair loose, eyes sharp. This isn't working, she said. Malik looked up from his phone. What isn't? This us me being part of your script. He frowned, setting the phone aside. You're not a script. No? She snapped. Then why do I only exist beside you? I get dressed by your people. I smile at your events. But when the doors close, who am I in this life? He was quiet. I thought I could handle it, she said. But I wake up every morning asking myself if I'm still Zubaida Bello, or if I've become someone you created because it looked good on paper. Malik stood slowly, walked toward her. His voice was low. You've always been you. I didn't give you anything you didn't already have. You walked into that room on your own. You made people listen. Don't confuse the platform with the person. She looked up at him, and for once saw the loneliness behind his confidence, the weight of a man who could buy anything except a clean reputation. I don't want your money, she said. I know. I don't want your power. No? Then why do I feel like I'm drowning in it? Malik didn't answer right away. Then he said, Because you've outgrown what we started. That stunned her. He stepped back. You want to know what real power is, Zubaida? It's walking away before the world hands you a price tag. 3 weeks later, Zubaida launched her own foundation, quietly, funded by a small grant from a women's empowerment NGO, not Malik's name, not his signature. She called it the Mirror Initiative. For girls like her, who needed someone to remind them they weren't invisible. Malik didn't attend the launch, but he sent flowers, with a note that said, You were never mine to keep, just mine to witness. MB. 6 months came and went. The contract ended. And Zubaida, she didn't renew it. She moved into a 2-bedroom flat in Surulere with Ramat, started studying part-time, and managed her foundation from a co-working space filled with other hungry building women. Bloggers stopped talking. The world moved on. But she had finally arrived in her own life. 1 year later, she ran into him at a business conference in Ghana. He was on stage, speaking like the legend he was. And she was sitting at the panel beside him, not as his +1, not as his shadow, but as the founder of an initiative that had pulled 400 girls back into classrooms. When he saw her, something passed between them. No words. No drama. Just two people who had changed each other and survived it. After the event, he walked up to her. "You look good," he said. She smiled. "So do you." "You happy?" "I'm free," he nodded. "That's better." And then he walked away. No promises, no goodbyes. Just peace. Zubaida turned to the window, watching the world move outside. She had been poor. She had been branded. She had been used and elevated and questioned. But now, finally, she was herself. Not a billionaire's girl, not a story. Just Zubaida Bello. And for the first time in her life, that was enough.